Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to yet another episode of AutoCentral, South Africa's #1 motoring podcast. And my name is George Mienie, and I'm as usual joined by none other than Wandile Sishi. How's it, Wandi?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's fresh, so I'm fresh and ready for what's ahead.
You're looking forward to what's ahead?
Yeah. Every week I'm looking forward to what's ahead.
Well, in today's show, we are calling this the Auto Wars episode. We'll unpack the reasons why South Africa's auto landscape is run by automakers from the East. And then next, joined by none other than our very own professional motoring journalist, Sean Nurse, who will unpack the all-new sought-after 2021 Haval Jolion, or Jolion as they call it. And then lastly, as always, we'll be answering your motoring-related questions, all things car buying and selling from our Ask AutoTrader platform. So, Wandi, what did you think of the race last?
The most interesting race I've ever seen, probably in my life. It was full of thrills, full of excitement, full of you just never knew what was going to happen. So yeah, fantastic racing. Really unfortunate for what happened to Red Bull, but I mean, that is racing for you. And what else can you say?
Yeah, I mean,
did you watch the race?
I did watch the race, and it was exciting. We were talking about the Hungarian Grand Prix, you know what? I'm not a Hamilton fan. As a matter of fact, sometimes he irritates me. But he drove a very good race. I mean, to go from last up to, what did he end up? On? Podium third.
He ended on P2 technically, or P3, but because of what happened afterwards, ended on P2. So yeah, sad for him. But anyways, if you're watching the YouTube, I just want to welcome you all to please just comment on what you think about the race as well. Touch thing about the show as well, and don't forget to just subscribe and hit the bell icon so we can have more of these conversations to make sure that we doing things that you want to hear and not just what we want. Exactly.
So let's get right into it. The Auto Wars episode. Why is South African motoring landscape, not South Africa, run by the East? So Wandi, what's your opinion? Which automakers run the South African consumer market? Toyota, BMW?
So yeah, those two for me are definitely the two front runners. Not just in South Africa, I think in Africa as a whole. Toyota and Eastern companies as a whole have just been running the SA market. I think a lot of things have come into play there. One, they came probably earlier than any other manufacturer to not just sell cars here, but to manufacture. And I think that's given them the edge versus the other counterparts around the world. I don't know what you think.
I mean, the German automakers are renowned for luxury, but I think in an
that's true.
An ever increasing cost conscious world where the income divide between the haves and have nots start to widen, price becomes one of the most important factors. And that's where I think the Eastern car manufacturers kind of have slotted in, is because when you think about BMW, Mercedes, VW, you're thinking about premium cars at a higher price. And yes, there's a market segment for that. But I think the East are filling a gap that is relevant for Africa.
Yeah. When you say the East, let's just clarify what the East means.
Well, when I say the East, I mean, Japan, China.
Okay.
Yeah. So Chinese brands, talking about kind of like which brands we're talking about, Chinese brands could soon take over from Japanese brands as the most popular vehicles in Africa. And the reason I say that is because Japanese brands have dominated brand new vehicle sales and used vehicle imports on the African continent for a long time. I mean, we all know that Toyota has painted Africa red, with its brand. But a recent study by the Washington, D.C. based company called Brookings Institution says that consumers in Africa are very brand conscious and brand loyal for the most part to Toyota. But is that about to change? What do you think?
I think it's so hard to say. There's so many things that are happening currently in the motoring industry in Africa. There's lots of firstly, there's lots of investment by companies that are not just from the East. We know that Ford, we had the Ford CEO come in and tell us about some of the new investment that they're doing. And then on top of that, there's EV manufacturers which are coming in a lot more relentlessly than we had seen the ICE companies come in. So it's hard to say, but I do think that, you know, Japan and China are still going to be the front runners in South Africa at least, and probably in you know, the rest of Africa.
Okay, so let's assume for a second that Japan and China are going to be the front runners in South Africa and Africa. So then who is going to be the ultimate front runner? Because we know that the brand new vehicle market, the Toyota Hilux is king in South Africa. The Hilux has generally got the top new vehicle sales records, and you know, other Toyota models in that lineup like the Corolla and Fortuner don't follow far behind. So excluding Egypt, South Africa, Sudan, Morocco, a lot of Africa is dominated by used vehicle imports. In South Africa, you can't import used vehicles.
You can't import them.
Yeah, it's a good thing for the automotive
it has
industry.
To be new.
It doesn't become a dumping ground, you know, and hopefully that changes in the future in Africa because, you know, if you want to get rid of your used vehicle stock, just export it to some countries in Africa. And even with used vehicle imports, Toyota seems to top the charts.
Well, I think it's important to unpack why. I think a lot of South Africans and a lot of Africans see Toyota as being reliable, affordable, and really easy to maintain. You can get parts for the vehicles wherever you go, really. So I think it's important to understand that. Yeah, it's a pricing thing. Africans are worried about price, and they'll be loyal to you if you make sure that the vehicle runs really well, is reliable, and is cheap when you come into it. And that's where Japan and Toyota specifically has just ran away with it.
But now we are starting to see Chinese brands enter the ICE market. And South Africa is the continent's largest market for new vehicles because we've just, you know, as we've just said, the second-hand vehicle imports in Africa are part of the African automotive industry's challenge, I think. And this particular vehicle called the Haval Jolion, that we're going to hear from Sean Nurse about soon, has made some inroads by a Chinese company called Great Wall Motors. And in fact, it was the second highest selling vehicle in the crossover and SUV segment in South Africa in the month of June. The Haval Jolion sold 708 units. Just
708 units, which is insane.
It's insane. Just 111 less than the Toyota Fortuner.
Yeah. Let's go back a year when I said that the T-Cross was going to be the new king of the hill. It's going to essentially replace the Polo and be the new crossover SUV giants, as we saw that SUVs were kind of running the game. I said the T-Cross was going to be the king of the hill. It never ever happened. It never became number one. And now it has this new vehicle, the Haval Jolion, to kind of, you know, fight. And people are just buying it left, right, and center. It's everywhere.
Exactly.
We've kind of seen that its price, the demand has been so high that the price of a used, you know, demo Jolion is sometimes more expensive than the new price. So we're going to be seeing a lot of these things happening as time goes by, and it's exciting for the motoring industry and for dealerships.
Exactly. So the Jolion, Wandie, you know, has won by, has rocketed by a landslide. And, you know, if we exclude the SUV from the segment, it's actually beaten the T-Cross.
It's done exactly that. In fact, I think it's even gone above the EcoSport, which is an SUV or compact SUV that a lot of people were saying is kind of going to be the new staple. But the fact that it's, you know, outsold the EcoSport is telling me that the Chinese brands are kind of, you know, there's this perception that Chinese brands were not going to be the same sort of quality that you get with the Japanese or German brand. And that's not the case anymore. People just want a car that works. And these Chinese brands have changed their perception by giving premium vehicles at a really low price, and it's working for them. You know, the numbers don't lie.
Well, the numbers don't lie. You know, obviously these are June numbers. At the time of recording, we had access to the June numbers. The July numbers, we predict that would follow a similar trend. And Haval has overtaken Nissan in South Africa in terms of new car sales as well. So,
Yeah.
Nissan sliding to Haval. So, with EVs becoming the new weapon of choice, Chinese brands could continue to increase their market share here because, what are the Japanese in the form of Honda doing when it comes to EVs? Have they missed a step?
I think they definitely have. Japan was, with the Leaf, with the Prius, the Toyota Leaf and the Toyota Prius were ahead of the game. They completely ran the EV game for many years, but I think the technology was just not there. And when everybody else came onto the party, so, the Fords, the Teslas, and a lot of Chinese new brands, started realizing that EVs are going to be the new weapon of choice in terms of market share, Japan was just not there. And we're seeing even now, there's many Chinese brands who are infiltrating even the Japanese market. And that says a lot about what might potentially happen in Africa and in South Africa.
I mean, Honda had such a good footing. I used to own a Honda Ballard, the 160e Honda Ballard, beautiful car. And then they came out with the hybrid version of the Honda, which was a good car, and I think it was a good contender against the Prius. But what's happened after that? So it's a journalist by the name of Jennifer Sensiba, as a matter of fact, wrote very recently, Honda has been making some utterly boneheaded moves when it comes to electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids. So that's Jennifer's opinion. And are they really losing their grip? Or should I say, is Japan losing its grip when it comes to the future of electric cars?
It's hard to say. It's hard to say because, we are reporting off, I'd say, about a year of data, specifically June data, and we're seeing that that's the case. When we go to another South African staple such as Bucky's, the Haval P series, another Chinese brand, came in and is now second in terms of sales for double cab. So across the board, it seems like China is making a huge charge for providing quality vehicles to their consumers at a really reasonable price. And with that kind of recipe, not even the German companies can kind of compete with them.
Well, I mean, is the quality up there with the Germans in terms of BMW, VW, and Mercedes? I don't think it might be there yet, but the price point is so palatable that you're willing to give up some of that luxury that the German cars may have over the Chinese vehicles, right? I mean, surely, it's going to be hard to trump BMW, Mercedes, and VW.
I would like to agree with you, but fortunately, we do have, Sean who's going to come in to kind of review that exact model, the Jolion, and tell us that exact, if that's the case. But the way that people are picking up this vehicle, it doesn't seem like price is the only factor. The speed, the way that it's coming is astounding.
Let's get Sean in here. Sean joining us from left field. How's it, Sean?
Hi there.
Thanks for joining. And ladies and gentlemen, Sean Nurse, our expert journalist. And as a matter of fact, Sean gets to drive all the cool cars like Porsche Taycan Turbo and Porsche 911 and, is...
all the Porsches.
There's a lot of Porsches going on.
There's a lot of Porsches going on there. But recently, Sean, you drove and reviewed the 2021 Haval Jolion. I hope I said that right. And
Yes.
Wandile and I were just discussing whether the Chinese are actually going to take the Japanese spot from, the likes of Toyota, Nissan, etc. And are the Chinese going to lead the South African and African market into the future? So maybe a little bit of an insight into, and we were also just talking about the quality of the Chinese brands, and I said to Wandile, at the price point, are the Chinese brands really as luxurious as VW, BMW, and VW? What did I say? VW, BMW, and Mercedes. Sorry. Wandile was challenging me on the fact that maybe the quality is up there at a lower price point. So tell us about this 2021 Haval Jolion.
Well, I have to say, despite, we chat about me driving Porsches and a bunch of other very fancy high-end cars, this has actually been one of the surprise packages of the year for me so far. Coming in at under 400,000 Rand for a fully spec product, takes on the likes of the Volkswagen T-Cross. The Jolion has been a bit of a revelation for the brand in the local markets. I think, without going off on too much of a tangent about Chinese products, in the past decade that I've been testing cars, I've experienced some really terrible Chinese products, but the way that they've progressed recently is just incredible. And this Jolion is definitely the best Chinese product I've ever driven. That's almost impossible to compete with it price per feature. Under 400,000 Rand, and you get things like wireless smartphone charging, you get head-up display, adaptive cruise control, autonomous braking, lane keep assist, blind spot assist. It's just a full raft of safety and infotainment systems. It's just, the list is too long to list. It's just completely fully specified. It's very, very impressive.
So, I mean, given your your like for the Haval Jolion and the way you're describing it, I mean, you're very well positioned to kind of compare the Chinese products with luxury German products, and particularly Porsche being very high end. And let's not try and compare an SUV to a sports car. So that's not what I'm suggesting. But forget because you said that the feature for price, or the price for each feature. So feature specific is one thing. Luxury is a feeling in most instances. What feeling do you get when you get into these cars? Can you really kind of compare them to the German marques or not?
Look, I think it's all relative with the products that you're comparing it with. So if you compare the Jolion to something like a Volkswagen T-Cross, now that's a product that I have found to be a bit too plastic inside from Volkswagen, which is quite disappointing when I reviewed that product. But the Haval is obviously not quite at the same level as a premium German product. But if you look at where it's positioned and its key rivals, I don't think it's any worse off in many areas. There are a few areas where you have a look at the trim and the finish, and it more comes down to, I think, the taste of the local market when you compare products specified for South Africa versus products that are perhaps designed and specified for China, where perhaps there's a difference in taste and the way that the materials look. But for the most part, it felt sturdy. There was no rattles or squeaks, and it handled our often, pockmarked roads pretty well from my experience. So I was struggling to find a massive issue with the product, aside from the powertrain, and there was a few iffy things with the infotainment system and the autonomous driving systems. But I think a lot of those things, apart from the powertrain, can be updated with a software upgrade and can be fixed. So I was really struggling to find a problem with the product, especially when compared with previous Chinese products.
Okay, so I think Wandile, my question's been answered. For where it sits in its segment, it is an almost equal competitor. And as Sean points out there, besides the engine, which you can't change with a software update, if we get to EVs, maybe you can. But everything else can be improved. What's wrong with the adaptive cruise control and the lane keep assist in the Haval Jolion?
So if you leave the car in its default settings, like when I got into the vehicle, it was set to sort of maximum volume, alerting you of everything. So I was kind of overwhelmed. There was just these beeps and the car was slowing down and warning me about everything. So I went into the infotainment system and I changed the settings and turned those things off. But also found the calibration of the systems to be a sort of generation behind, which is fair play, because the other brands that I've been experiencing this technology from have had a generation to develop this stuff. So I think with a bit of calibration work, the systems will be less sensitive to our local road conditions because, like I was saying off air earlier, the South African following distance is a lot different to a lot of other following distances. We can definitely fit more cars into our following distances than in other countries. So the software will catch up. But for the most part, the products I drove definitely needed some calibration work.
Well, I mean,
is this I just have one question for you, Sean. So is this going to be the new Polo? Is this going to be, because we know crossovers are becoming the most popular vehicles, no, crossovers and SUVs together are becoming, the fastest growing body type in South Africa. And, I don't think it's going to be as popular as some of the double cabs and buckies, but is this going to be a contender for the position that the Polo, sits in within the South African consumer's mind?
I think they could definitely make a smaller one, because if you look at if you hop inside a Jolion, it's massive. Like, you can really get 3 people in the second row of seats comfortably, 3 adults. And it's got a very reasonable boot too. So it's more a Volkswagen Golf. It's more like the new Volkswagen Golf for me. If they build a smaller SUV, and a better version of the H1, because that wasn't a very good car, but if they bring out a smaller version, then I think something like that could definitely replace the likes of a Polo or Polo Vivo in the local context. There's actually another product based on this unfortunately named lemon platform called the Haval Big Dog, which is a very weird looking SUV, which they haven't confirmed nor denied is coming to South Africa as of yet. So I urge listeners and viewers to Google Haval Big Dog. Despite its weird name, it's a very, very interesting looking car.
Haval Big Dog.
Haval Big Dog. Yeah.
Doing it now. Haval Big Dog. Looks like an American. Looks like an American, Chrysler almost. And you know what? It almost looks like the front of a Land Rover. The new. Now the names escape me.
Defender.
The new Defender, yes. So it almost looks like a bit of the front of the new Defender.
Yeah, I think if that car came here and they had the price around the R500,000 mark, they would sell a truckload of those. They're really, really good. I think they'll be really good for the local market, but I don't know if they'll bring it here. But like I was saying to Wandile, I think a smaller Haval SUV, a small crossover, sort of Mazda CX-3 size, which is a little bit smaller than the Jolion, would be a very, very good seller in this market.
Very interesting. So this Haval Jolion 2021 model, Sean, what is it? What is its price tag?
So the one I test drove was 398,900 rand, and that is the absolute top spec. It's called the Super Lux. Now, if it was me heading into a dealership, you wouldn't be able to obviously get a Super Lux at the moment because there's a bit of a shortage of them because it's such a popular product. I would probably go just for the Lux, the luxury, because that's 367,900 rand. Granted, you don't get the 360-degree camera, and you also don't get the semi-autonomous driving functions. But if you can live without those features, you still get a very highly specified product for, the price of an absolute base model Volkswagen T-Cross. It's hard to argue with it.
Yeah.
So what is your score there, Sean? Out of 10, what do you think the Haval Jolion 2021 scores?
I didn't think I'd give a Haval product an 8 out of 10. But yeah, I'd give it an 8. It's just so difficult to beat the car on value. It's that good of a proposition. I think it deserves an 8 out of 10.
Wow, an 8 out of 10. That's what do you think of that, Wandile?
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what I thought it would be. I've seen a few reviews of it, and people are raving about it, and we're seeing the numbers don't lie. Once again, people are just picking them up, so there must be a reason why it's so popular. And 8 is just fitting.
Well, that's great stuff. Thank you very much, Sean, our expert journalist, Sean Nurse there, giving us the lowdown on the 2021 Haval Jolion. And if you want to read anything more, see any expert videos, just head over to autotrader.co.za and go to our news and reviews platform, and you'll see many of Sean's reviews posted on AutoTrader's platform. So there you have it, Sean Nurse, ladies and gentlemen. See you next time, Sean.
Thank you, George. Cheers, Wandile.
Ciao, ciao.
Thanks, Sean.
Well, there, Wendy, what do you think? Will you buy one?
Would I buy one? That's the golden question. I think I would definitely consider one. It would sit very high in my consideration in terms of a next crossover or next vehicle. It deserves a test drive.
Awesome. I'm going to see if I can get my bum in one and get an opinion of my own. So everyday people send AutoTrader motoring related questions about all things car buying and selling. And so Wendy and I will attempt to answer some of those questions from you. So Wendy, what's the first question?
First question comes from Yasmin, who's asked licensing and registration. So if I purchase a car in 2020, if I purchase a 2020 new vehicle in 2020 and license it under 2020, the NATIS and traffic department will say it's 2020. But if I purchase the same 2020 vehicle and register it in 2021, it's registered as a 2021 vehicle despite the year model or the production model being 2020. Why does this happen, and how does this affect the value of your vehicle?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of 2020s and 2021s there, Wendy, so I can fully understand the confusion, but I don't feel so bad and stumbling myself. So according to our legislation, Yasmin, the car is deemed to stem from the year of its first registration. Now, there is two particular dates that are important when it comes to a car, and that is the year of manufacture, or the date of manufacture, and then the date of first registration. Remember, the car is almost on ice, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
If you think about a new car, a new car doesn't span only 1 year. A particular model will come out and will last for 2, 3, 4 years sometimes before it gets an upgrade or a facelift. So I don't know how important registration date is. However, you point out that the value changes, and that it does. So the year of first registration, if you cross the cusp of the year, which is the end of December, in many instances, a car registered in January is worth slightly more than a car registered in the December before. And it's not an ideal situation, and it stems from a standardized age classification that exists for insurance and warranty purposes. And, if it's any consolation, the window period only exists for the duration of the dealer plate's validity, which is less than a month. So in many cases, it means that only cars sold in December will be impacted. So fear not. Okay. Only cars in December will be impacted by this phenomenon. So I hope that answers your question, Yasmin. Next question, Wendy.
Next question comes from Mbali, who's asked, how much should I earn to qualify to buy a 220,000 rand car, and how much would I be paying per month?
Well, Mbali, you do mention in your question that you're earning 13,000 Rand a month. And we ran the stats through our AutoTrader car finance calculator and used 72-month repayment period, 10% deposit with no residual. And a car with the list price of 220,000 Rand will cost you about 3,700 Rand a month in installments. These numbers may vary according to your credit profile, so please don't take this as financial advice. And only guidelines. We're not financial services providers. With most financial services providers giving a maximum or stipulating a maximum of 25% of your monthly income going towards a car repayment, your monthly salary needs to be about 14,800 Rand a month in order to buy a car of 220,000 Rand. So you may struggle to get finance for a 220,000 Rand car. So we would advise you to set your sights on a 200,000 Rand car or below, which seems to fit into your income bracket.
Yeah.
And there's lots of cars out there for those prices. So leave yourself enough of a safety margin in your finances as well. Maybe go for something for 150 or 180,000 Rand. That there's loads of used vehicles on AutoTrader that you can go for. Next question, Wendy.
Agreed. So the last question comes from Marissa, who's asked, is this misrepresentation or advertising of a purchased car? So Marissa purchased a car from a local dealership about 2 years ago, and it was advertised as having an engine capacity of about 1.5 liters. But later on, when she tried to sell the car, she was later informed that the vehicle is in fact a 1.4 liter. So she just wants to understand what's the legalities behind this. Can she go back to the old dealership and tell them that they essentially costed her or made her pay for a car that's 1.5 when it's actually a 1.4 liter? What can she do?
Well, Marisa, unfortunately, we've deliberated internally about this question, and the conclusion is that this is a bigger legal issue than just us giving you an answer. So we can't give you an answer, unfortunately. It's true that the Consumer Protection Act guarantees you the right to information, but the time elapsed since your initial transaction makes it a little bit tricky, we would imagine. And if you don't decide to take legal action, because we think that that's potentially one of your only routes, you can start by evaluating your rights by way of the South African Consumer Complaints and lodging a complaint there before turning to the Motor Industry Ombudsman, which is another option for you. And if all else fails, legal action. And I would definitely get legal advice on this.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more complicated. I mean, I know, for instance, the C63 is actually a 6.2 liter. Whereas a lot of people thought it was a 6.3 liter, but that's something that the OEM was very clear about. So it just kind of depends on how this car was advertised. There's just so many different details which come into it. So
I don't think we've got enough information to really answer Marisa, but our advice is go and seek advice. And that's all we have time for, ladies and gentlemen. And as a result of that, we've come to the end of our AutoCentral show. So my name is George Mienie, as usual, being joined by Wandile Sishi. We will see you next time.